You've been watching President Trump hold a law enforcement roundtable at the White House. At the roundtable, the president announced he created a task force to eliminate cartels. He also took questions about the recent U.S. strikes on suspected narco-trafficking boats. Border correspondent Jaeson Jones joins me. Nice to see you, Jason. And this is going to be more help to get rid of those cartels, what the president's announcing, right?
Well, it absolutely is. Look, the president has it right. The policy of total elimination overlaid with the foreign terrorism designation about getting new focus from the U.S. intelligence agencies, overlay that with authorities. This is where the big win is. Now, to validate that, you heard a lot of the stats that he gave for domestic operations. Look, they've arrested DEA recently, just 600 Sinaloa cartel members here, and a lot of them on material support. We would have never had that without the terrorism designation. The other part of this, though, is this transition of adjustment that you heard a little bit from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth talking about a new way of going after these cartels in South America. This is the transition, getting away from a broken DOJ model, Greta, that didn't work for 60 plus years and trying to do something new, not staying with the same old counter-narcotic strategy in South America. What is really not understood and talked much about, and you and I were just on talking about this a little over a week ago before they shifted to the Pacific, striking those vessels, is what has happened with the rise of the South American cartels and how the State Department has now started designating several of them because this is where operations are going. What caused that? What caused it was this. When we pulled the scab off of Mexico and 29 of the capos came here, overlaid with another 26 into the country, the debriefs from that really illuminated the vessel of the Venezuelan government operating as a sanctuary for all those cartels as they were rising. So that allowed them to really understand why it was so pivotal to start in Venezuela. But I will say it again and again, watch what we do in Colombia and watch what we do in Ecuador.
And I think the thing always to keep in mind is that even like just I think last year, 90,000 people were killed by fentanyl in this country. And imagine if some foreign country came in and eliminated 80 or 90,000 people. So this is a war. Jaeson Jones, thank you.
Great to be with you, Greta.
Coming up, Russia says Trump is looking for war. Why? That when the record continues.
Just before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead. Charlie wrote this in the foreword for the new book, Pagan Threat, by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said that Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read and share this book. A #1 Amazon bestseller, Pagan Threat is available everywhere. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer and save $30. Go online today and read Charlie's final words.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next. And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans. Compare drug coverage. Compare costs. See if you can save. And make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Compare plans now at Medicare.gov.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
With today's NBA stars, no lead is safe.
Bet on it. Up 20 used to be a lock.
To Steph, Booker, and Brunson, that's fool's gold.
Got a lead against a joker? Joke's on you.
Hoopers get hot like pot, pot, pot. And your bet just cashed.
That's money.
New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins. Paid in bonus bets. Plus, get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us. The crown is yours.
Oh, for the love.
Hi, TV, GD. Can you lower my monthly bill?
Nah, I can raise it.
You can what?
You'll see.
Save over $300 in your first year with 3 months free.
Jesus Christ came to take the muck out of you. Let me send you this free book, The Everlasting Gospel of Christ. This is absolutely free. We simply want you to know Jesus Christ.
Big sanctions on Russia. As we mentioned yesterday, these substantial sanctions were coming, and now they are here. The United States is sanctioning 2 of Russia's largest oil companies. Obviously, this is not sitting well with Russia. Former President of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, said, quote, "The United States is our adversary, and their talkative peacemaker has now fully embarked on the war path with Russia," end quote. And it's not just the United States imposing new sanctions on Russia. Today, the European Union says it is also sanctioning Russia oil and gas. Their sanctions include a ban on imports of Russian liquefied natural gas for the entire EU bloc. Former U.S. Ambassador to NATO Kurt Volker joins me. Good evening, sir. Tell me, what do you foresee as the impact of the sanctions from a diplomatic standpoint and an economic standpoint on Russia?
Well, starting with the economic standpoint, most of the money that goes to the Kremlin for their conduct of the war comes from oil and gas sales. We've already had sanctions on gas for a long time. This is now adding sanctions on oil as well. It still does not include secondary sanctions. Those people who are willing to violate the sanctions, like India or China, to reprocess the oil, they're still going to do that. But this does put some more pressure on Russia's finances. Now, diplomatically, Russia is already under a lot of financial pressure, so any additional pressure will be felt. And so what they're trying to do is back us off by using threatening language like Medvedev did, saying that we're on a warpath with Russia. They're trying to back us off. The reality, of course, is that Russia has been waging a brutal war of aggression against its neighbor, Ukraine, for over 3.5 years, and no one has joined that war against Russia. And these measures themselves are not a war against Russia, but rather an effort to get them to stop.
Well, this seems like, at least with the announcement of the new sanctions, it almost feels a little bit like the childish game called chicken. See who first gives up. Is the United States going to amp up the sanctions or lessen them? And what's Putin going to do? How long can he take it?
Yeah. Well, you have to give President Trump some credit here for giving Putin
I didn't. Let me just say, I didn't mean that as a derogatory fashion, just to sort of simplify it to see who's going to blink first, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but I don't think it really is a game of chicken. I think President Trump has bent over backwards to try to create conditions for a deal to end the war. He has avoided new sanctions on Russia. He has been cautious about weapons for Ukraine. He's now allowing Europeans to buy them rather than our taxpayers providing them. He has offered summit meetings. He hosted Putin in Alaska. He's offered trilateral meetings with him and Zelensky, bilateral meetings. He has done everything possible to try to convince Putin to do a deal and stop the fighting, end the war. And Putin keeps rebuffing him. He keeps both rejecting the offers of peace and the suggestions that he end the war, and then lying to President Trump as well, saying that he'll do a deal, saying that he'll meet with Zelensky, and then backing out of it later. So I think President Trump has really been forced by Putin to say, I've got to put some pressure on here in order to try to create conditions that you, Putin, will want to end the war.
But will these sanctions, without secondary sanctions or even more extreme, providing Zelensky with those Tomahawk missiles? I mean, what is next? Because Putin he won't do anything. He's been offered everything by the president.
That's exactly right. And I think what President Trump needs to conclude is that there is no deal that Putin will ever accept. Putin is on a different mission. He wants to rebuild the Russian Empire. He wants to eliminate Ukraine as a state and have it subjected to Russia. And what we heard from Lavrov when he was talking with Rubio on Monday, it was any part of Ukraine that Russia doesn't control is by definition controlled by Nazis. That is an absolute extreme position where they are saying they have a determination, a right to take over the entire country. Given that that is Putin's position, I don't think President Trump really has much of a choice but to give the long-range weapons to Ukraine, put the sanctions in place on Russia's economy, turn the screws as much as you need to get Putin to have to face that dire choice of continuing the war and risking the Russian state or ending the war and saving his own position.
Ambassador Kurt Volker, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, the feds bust a major gambling operation.
The fraud is mind-boggling. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation.
Those details when the record continues.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
There's nothing worse than losing your dog before their time. So why do so many dog foods contain awful things a human would never eat? To save his pets, world-famous veterinarian Dr. Marty knew he had to change what was in their bowl.
That's why I created Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, my breakthrough formula that's changed everything about dog food.
Nature's Blend contains nothing but all-natural ingredients, designed to help dogs with everything from digestive issues to itching and paw licking, even moving around better. And that's because Nature's Blend is freeze-dried. So instead of destroying the nutrients with high heat, we gently preserve them, and you'll see the difference in your dog.
Take it from a veterinarian with over 50 years of experience saving dogs' lives. I have never seen a food make this much impact on a dog's health.
Such a huge difference in her health. More energy, more playful, no more pooping issues. He's healthier, he looks better.
Dr. Marty has thousands of 5-star reviews. And for a limited time, get up to 54% off Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, plus a free gift with our special TV offer. Call or go to drmartypets.com/TV. That's drmartypets.com/TV.
McMulkin Chevrolet is the world's largest Corvette dealer once again, setting a record for the highest number of Corvettes ever sold in a calendar year, 1,857 in total. Your premier Corvette buying experience begins at McMulkin Chevrolet. McMulkin has hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery anywhere in the country. When you're ready to feel your presence in America's sports car, trust the #1 Corvette dealer in the world, McMulkin Chevrolet.
Today's league is all about game changers, faster play, crazy point swings, dudes that do it all. And DraftKings is the only sportsbook offering NBA League Pass, so you can catch the league's biggest stars all season long. Bet on all kinds of star player props. Bet live as the action happens. Bet with the only sportsbook that's dishing out exclusive access to NBA League Pass. All customers place $20 in NBA same-game parlay bets and get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Want to know more about you? Like a lot more? Join the millions of others who've made discoveries with Ancestry DNA. Learn more than ever at Ancestry.
Busted by the FBI. Earlier today, the FBI announced a bombshell illegal sports betting scheme involving 4 NBA teams, 4 Mafia crime families. Here's FBI Director Kash Patel and United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Joseph Nocella.
Individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Casa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchesi crime families.
We're announcing today indictments in 2 major cases, both involving fraud. One involves sports betting, and the other involves illegal gambling, very specifically rigged poker games. Between December 2022 and March 2024, these defendants perpetrated a scheme to defraud by betting on inside, non-public information about NBA athletes and teams. The non-public information included when specific players would be sitting out future games, or when they would pull themselves out early for purported injuries or illnesses. I would like to turn to the other case, United States versus Aiello, the rigged poker game case. Beginning as early as 2019, the defendants in this case orchestrated a scheme to use wireless cheating technology to run rigged poker games across the United States, including in the Hamptons, Las Vegas, Miami, and Manhattan. As part of the scheme, some of the defendants and their co-conspirators also committed acts of violence, including the gunpoint robbery of a person.
After that press conference, the NBA released this statement. It reads, quote, "We are in the process of reviewing the federal indictments announced today. Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups are being placed on immediate leave from their teams, and we will continue to cooperate with the relevant authorities. We take these allegations with the utmost seriousness, and the integrity of our game remains our top priority," end quote. Earlier, I spoke with FBI Assistant Director in charge of the New York Field Office, Christopher Raia. Sir, thank you very much for joining me.
Yes, thanks for having me, Greta. Appreciate it.
Looking at this indictment, the alleged crime is from January 2022 to March of 2024. Have you been working on it this long?
Yes, ma'am. It's been a very complex and long case. So really our agents, our analysts, and our personnel have been working on this case for approximately 2 years, as we said in the indictment.
You know, it's extraordinary, and I see that you worked with the police commissioner, Tisch, too, as well, and so you think you've got the NYPD, you've got the police commissioner, you got the FBI, you've got this huge investigation, 31 people, and it never leaked out.
Yeah, it's a very good operational security. I mean, especially when you have high-profile subjects as of these, we have to keep operational security of the utmost importance in these. And of course, we work through our task forces. So Commissioner Tisch graciously lends us her folks to be part of these task forces, and we simply can't do it without the NYPD, and they're a major part of this investigation, along with HSI.
Well, you know, I live in a city where we live on leaks, so naturally I'm amazed, you know, at the NYPD and the FBI being able to do this. All right, the arrests, all 31 arrested?
That's correct. We have 31 arrested as of this morning. So that have been charged in the initial indictment.
Well, that must have been done all at once, right? I mean, was it all of a sudden that someone gave the go sign, and how many cities were involved?
That's correct. So, yeah, that was correct. The operation this morning spanned 11 states across the country. Obviously, we had the bulk of the defendants here in the New York area, but we had 10 other states that were involved where we conducted an operational activity, include arrests as well as search warrants.
Well, even the fact that it didn't leak from the grand jury is extraordinary, too. I mean, because you had 16 to 23 people on a federal grand jury. I mean, that's stunning. I take it the 31 were surprised. I mean, none of them were, I take it none was a cooperating witness turned defendant. They were all surprised to be arrested?
That's correct. Yep, that's correct. We had during the arrest, all of them, you know, were very surprised to see us at the door, especially the high-profile folks, since they most of them are the active player and coach that were involved. You know, they had a game last night, so us showing up this morning was not probably what they expected this morning.
Well, I'm even sort of amazed at sort of the mechanics of arresting 31 people, because you've got in all these different places, all at the same time. Who gave the go signal to make the arrests?
So that's a coordinated effort between us. Obviously, us saying, I mean, FBI New York. We started a command post. We traditionally do a command post in these types of large-scale takedowns, and with these command posts, we normally give the okay to our other field offices that are supporting it. And again, like I said, 11 states. We had so roughly, and you're gonna have to help me on the number. You're gonna have to not hold me to the number, but I think it's roughly 11 or 12 field offices were involved. And we all coordinated together. We were all in contact. When 6 a.m. came this morning, we gave the go. We reached out to our counterparts in those 11 other states. And luckily, I think by 8 or 9, we had everybody in custody.
Well, it's straight out of a movie. The Mafia is involved in this, and the NBA, which is, you know, it's quite a story. I take it, I mean, usually the Mafia is a little bit smarter than that. I mean, have them get caught like this, assuming that they're guilty. you know, it's pretty unusual. Did the NBA help you at all? Were they aware that this was going to happen in the organization?
Yeah, NBA was cooperating with us through every step of the investigation, and you know, I think to your earlier point of you know, this was a very complex investigation that we're able to keep close held. You know, it's an FBI-led investigation, so we have very sophisticated techniques that some of our local law enforcement partners don't have, and I think that was, you know, I think that was the reason that the majority, you know, that this did stay relatively quiet. And per our director, that's been a priority of his since taking over in February. You know, he wanted to limit the leaks, not only with this case, but with everything. And I think you're see some of the fruits of that just by this major operation going off largely, you know, unaware, you know, largely without any leaks.
Well, I'm a former defense attorney, and I must say that this is so complex that I'm glad that's not sort of one of my cases, because this is really a sophisticated operation, and the FBI's got a 2-year jump on the defense lawyers. So I wouldn't want to, you know, so this would not be an easy case for a defense lawyer because of its complexity.
Yeah, absolutely. Very complex case. And, you know, another thing you alluded to it earlier, Greta, it's got a lot of the buzzwords in it, right? We've got LCN, 4 of the 5 families involved in this. As our investigation has revealed so far, you have high-profile NBA players, you got former players, current players, you got a high-profile coach, Chauncey Billups, involved in this, and it is extremely complex because you're dealing with a multitude of different charges. We've got wire fraud, illegal gambling, money laundering, extortion, robbery, and so all those at once, trying to build that into one case is one of the reasons, to your earlier point, why it did take us 2 years to put something of this breadth and depth together.
Well, you're going to have to get Madison Square Garden for the trial, because there are going to be so many defendants and so many lawyers in one case, and agents and witnesses and everything else. So, sir, thank you very much for joining me, and I'll be watching the developments. Thank you, sir.
Greta, thanks so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
Coming up, is President Trump making a reversal? That when the record continues.
I am Mr. H, owner of Immuno 150, possibly the most complete and best nutritional supplement in the world, bar none. Now, it has propelled me to 91 years of age, and my wife Shirley to 82. Both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, doing everything we did many years ago. All because of Immuno 150, and it can do the very same thing for you. Try it for 90 days so you can experience the difference it can make in your life. Nothing on the market can compete with the way we blend 70 plant-derived colloidal minerals with 80 very carefully selected nutrients. You'll be surprised if you take the recommended dose of Immuno 150 for 3 months. Place your order now so that you can be with us many years from now. Thank you, and God bless.
Back in the day, you bet sinners just to get boards.
Word.
Now I take them to make threes.
Today's NBA stars, everybody does everything.
Ant-Man, SGA, Luka, dudes playing 1 through 5.
Bigs dishing out like family dinner.
Woo! Got me smashing triple doubles. Shaq, basketball, not burgers.
New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Plus, get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us. The crown is yours.
At Humana, we believe your health care should evolve with you, and part of that evolution means choosing the right Medicare plan for you. Humana can help. Hi, my name is Sam Davis, and I'm going to tell you about Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans that can provide more coverage than Original Medicare, including prescription drug coverage, all wrapped up into one convenient plan. With Original Medicare, you're covered for hospital stays and doctor office visits, but you have to meet a deductible for each, and then you're still responsible for 20% of the cost. Next, let's look at Medicare supplement plans. If a service is covered under Original Medicare, then a Medicare supplement plan pays for some or all of your Medicare deductibles and the 20% co-insurance, but they may have higher monthly premiums and no prescription drug coverage. Humana Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans include medical coverage, plus prescription drug coverage, with $0 copays on hundreds of prescriptions. All plans include $0 copays for covered preventive dental services, vision coverage that includes vision exams and a yearly allowance toward eyewear, and hearing benefits that include routine hearing exams and coverage toward hearing aids. You could get $0 copays for in-network preventive services like primary care visits, mammograms, and prostate exams, and there's worldwide coverage for emergency and urgent care when you travel. Plus, Humana also offers Medicare Advantage plans. Plans have $0 or low monthly plan premiums, and there's a cap on your out-of-pocket costs. To see if Humana plans are available in your area, simply call the number on your screen or visit our website. The Medicare annual enrollment period ends on December 7th, so call now. Humana, a more human way to healthcare.
Is it San Francisco's turn? Well, not yet. Over the weekend, President Trump said that his administration would be sending the National Guard to San Francisco. But moments ago, the president backtracked saying this about San Francisco.
Others called me from San Francisco, and they said, we're working really, really hard with the mayor, and we're making progress. Would it be possible for you to hold off the surge? And I had 4 or 5 calls, and I think they're making progress of their own. That would be the greatest. I mean, if they could do that, that'd be great. And they have great competence in those people. I mean, incredible competence, some of the smartest business leaders. And they're working very well with the police department. They're doing a good job. So we are holding off that surge, everybody.
As an aside, yesterday after Trump said the National Guard would be going to San Francisco, California Governor Gavin Newsom said this.
We're going to be fierce in terms of our response. We're going to be focused, and quite literally, this is the lawsuit that I will file within a nanosecond of any efforts to send the military to one of America's great cities, San Francisco, that is enjoying 60% reduction in homicide, or rather homicide reduction that's the lowest it's been in 60 years. It's one of the safest large cities in this country that's experiencing economic rebirth and growth. Only Donald Trump can wreck that. And we will push back with clarity and conviction, and we'll continue to win in court.
And now Trump is holding off sending the National Guard to San Francisco. California Congressman, member of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Kevin Kiley joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So what is the story on California? I mean, I'm not out there. I mean, how's it doing? How's the crime? How's San Francisco? How's L.A.?
Well, here's one important thing to note. I mean, Newsom's hypocrisy knows absolutely no bounds. 2 years ago, he himself sent the National Guard to San Francisco. He sent a token force, but he sent them there.
For what? For crime?
For crime. And for fentanyl specifically. And he said, and this is an exact quote from his press release, we cannot allow rampant crime to continue. Now, of course, he did allow rampant crime to continue, but it is true that over the last year, we've seen modest, very modest improvements in San Francisco. But it has nothing to do with Newsom. In fact, it's in spite of Newsom. Yes, we have a new mayor who's taken a somewhat different approach, but also we as voters in California passed an initiative to make crime illegal again last year over Newsom's strident opposition.
Making it illegal? Wait a minute, what, crime wasn't illegal?
Yeah, that's pretty much, because the penalties were so low. So they went, like, for retail theft, you'd see, people would just walk into stores and they'd steal and they'd walk out and they wouldn't even try to hide it, and it made no point to arrest people.
But, my experience with the California court system, it's been a while, is that it takes forever. Your systems are so overcrowded that it's a little crazy, your court system. It seemed broken 30 years ago. Even your death row is, is 30 years on death row. I mean, it's just incredible. Nothing seems to move within the court system.
Yeah, so that's one facet of the problem for sure. We've also had these rogue district attorneys, although they recalled the one in San Francisco. They recalled the district attorney in Oakland. And in L.A., George Gascon, who Newsom had initially appointed, overwhelmingly lost re-election. So we actually have restored some real consequences for crime over Newsom's objection. And then also we won a Supreme Court case that allows us to remove homeless from the streets now, also over Newsom's objection. He wanted the lower court decision to stay. So it is precisely because we have managed to Newsom-proof our state, in a sense, that San Francisco is doing a little bit better.
All right. Obviously, there's a shutdown. It's not your fault. It's the Senate. We're waiting to. But you told me when you sat down that that you're doing tours of the Capitol for your constituents.
I am. I just gave a tour. I mean, I was with the 50 kids who were there from a middle school, 8th graders.
And usually, someone on your staff would do that, or somebody else would do those tours.
Yeah. So usually, you kind of have committee hearings and things to attend to, and a member of your staff will lead the tour. But during the shutdown, we ourselves have to be there. So I actually passed by several other members who were there giving tours while we were doing it as well. But it was pretty fun, to be honest. I learned some things I didn't even know because you're in the building every day, but you're not necessarily looking at the ceiling at the drawings and whatnot.
It must be fun for the kids too to have their member of Congress actually do the tours too.
They really loved it. It was a group of 8th graders that were there studying U.S. history, and I really enjoyed meeting them. So there are some silver linings.
Any crystal ball on whether the Senate's going to do anything soon?
I had hoped that maybe they would just, get this done within a week or two, but now the two sides seem to have really, just had their positions calcify. And so I am hoping that I'm always an optimist that we'll see some movement here soon, because this is just an absolutely devastating thing for the American people, and the consequences continue to pile up every day.
For some reason, I'm fixated on the airlines, the air traffic controllers, and everybody else not getting. I think they're still getting paid, or I don't know what it is, but it's a lot of stress on a very stressed system.
Well, they will miss paychecks, absolutely, and so that is a huge problem, and people are going to see delays.
Congressman Kevin Kiley from the great state of California. Thank you, sir. Nice to see you.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Coming up, I've spent 21 years investigating the Natalie Holloway case, and now something about it is really infuriating. That when the record continues.
From our orchards in Oregon to your holiday table, Harry and David delivers a legacy of gourmet excellence. Our prepared meals, fine wines, charcuterie, all crafted to elevate any celebration. Make it a hand-picked holiday with Harry and David.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
My employees and I want to thank all of you at Newsmax for your continued support of MyPillow. It's because of you and the grace of God that we're making it through. And to thank you, we're bringing you the best offers ever. Get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regularly $119.98, now only $29.88. Our My Towels are finally back in stock. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. Towels that actually work. What a concept. And for the first time and the only time ever, you're going to get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code when you order today. Inventory for these offers are extremely limited, and once they're gone, they're gone.
It's the Stackable Savings Sale at Cabinets to Go. Discover quality cabinets, countertops, accessories, and more. Plus, watch as your dream kitchen comes to life with a free 3D design. Don't wait, the Stackable Savings Sale ends soon. Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Used daily, dermatologist recommended Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream can help restore your skin's natural barrier and reduce the appearance of bruises. If you have mature skin and bruise easily, get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle and get back to having way too much fun.
You got to be kidding me. What chutzpah. Joyce Vance, the MSNBC legal analyst, wrote a book titled Giving Up is Unforgivable. Now, that's the last thing I would title a book if I were Joyce Vance, since she did exactly that. She gave up and didn't bother back in 2010 to bring Yaron Vandersloot to Alabama to answer to a 2010 indictment that her office got against Vandersloot for extortion and wire fraud. Now, as you recall, Vandersloot, 5 years earlier, back in 2005, murdered Natalie Holloway. But Aruba, where the murder occurred, never charged him. Yeah, how about that, right? So in 2010, in a sting operation at a hotel in Aruba, Vandersloot extorted the mother of Natalie Holloway. He said for money, he would tell Natalie's mother where he buried her murdered daughter. And then the FBI, under the supervision of then U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance and her office, completely blew the sting operation. Vandersloot slipped away, and 2 weeks later, he killed again Stephanie Flores in Peru. So Vance and her office, no doubt to cover up for their botched sting, hurried an indictment of Vandersloot in Alabama for the extortion and wire fraud from the sting. But then, crickets. She gave up. All she did was issue a silly press release bragging about the wire fraud and extortion indictment. But she did not bring Vandersloot to Alabama to answer to that indictment. Maybe she didn't want to highlight the botched sting with a trial in Alabama, since the botched sting opened the door for the murder of Stephanie Flores. I would not blame Vance for wanting to hide that one, but bottom line, Vance gave up. She did not bring Vandersloot to the United States for trial on the 2010 extortion indictment, and she was U.S. Attorney in Alabama until 2017. But guess who did not give up? You guessed it, me. But since I didn't have Vance's authority, she was U.S. Attorney, I was not, it's been a heavy lift. It took years for me to do her job and get the FBI and the Department of Justice to go get Vandersloot from that prison in Peru and bring him to Alabama federal court to answer to her 2010 indictment. That finally happened in 2023, 13 years after the botched sting. Vance is right about one thing. Giving up is unforgivable. Coming up, a job that dog lovers dream to have, that when the record continues.
You hear the same voices.
Donald Trump knows that's a lie.
From the same people.
Donald Trump is less lucid.
Saying the same thing.
Insults, invective, and outright lies.
And you say, enough! I'm Chris Salcedo, and I'll tell you the real news. You don't believe me? Just tune in.
I love Rise mushroom coffee, and not just because I look good drinking it.
Hello there.
The all-day energy I get is good too, and it's easy on the stomach. But mostly, it's because I look good drinking it.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. Please make a great gift. It's Trump time.
There's a war raging in our society. It's not a battle over politics, race, or the sexual revolution. It's a battle for truth.
What we believe about the Bible is based on what we believe about its source.
The God Who Speaks is an award-winning documentary that uncovers the evidence for the Bible's authority. Discover the truth today. Visit thegodwhospeaks.org.
Are you or a loved one a military veteran that has been diagnosed with mesothelioma? Do you have questions about getting the best treatment or paying medical bills? Have you received the proper care and compensation you deserve? Let our firm serve you with the same dedication you served your country. We are exclusively devoted to helping those with mesothelioma. Call now to get this free book, and we'll answer any question you have. We'll even visit you.
Call 800-555-8958 or go to mesobook.com.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
With today's NBA stars, no lead is safe.
Bet on it. Up 20 used to be a lock.
To Steph, Booker, and Brunson, that's fool's gold.
Got a lead against the Joker? Joke's on you.
Hoopers get hot like pop, pop, pop. And your bet just cashed.
That's money.
New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins. Paid in bonus bets. Plus, get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us. The crown is yours.
There's nothing worse than losing your dog before their time.
That's why I created Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, designed to help dogs with everything from digestive issues to itching, even moving better.
Nature's Blend works because it's freeze-dried. So instead of destroying the nutrients with high heat, they all get right into your dog's body.
Take it from a veterinarian with over 50 years of experience saving dogs' lives. I have never seen a food make this much impact on a dog's health.
For a limited time, get up to 54% off Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, plus a free gift with our special TV offer. Call or go to drmartypets.com/TV.
Sponsored by Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, the health of fresh food with the convenience of kibble. Visit drmartypets.com/TV.
On the school bus during doggy daycare, these dogs took a ride around Calgary, Canada. They're all very excited. Ruff and Puff is a company that picks up dogs and drives them to a private dog park. The dogs play and exercise and later return home. The bus is even specifically equipped for dogs with individual compartments and safety gates. The company looks after 15 to 30 dogs every day, and they share their adventures on social media. Some of the dogs look ready to go to another park, while others look ready for bed. The Chris Salcedo Show is up next. Have a great evening.